What if everything you've been told about the most influential person in history was only half the truth? Imagine uncovering shocking details about their childhood that churches never discuss, and revelations about their death that will completely shatter what you thought you knew. Before we dive into these mind-blowing discoveries, quick question: where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. I love seeing our amazing global community. In the next few minutes, I'm revealing documented evidence that historians tried to bury for centuries. But first, if you want more eye-opening content like this, smash that subscribe button and give this video a like. It really helps spread the truth. Now, are you ready to discover what really happened 2,000 years ago? Let's expose the secrets they didn't want you to know. The morning mist clung to the cobblestones of New Haven like a shroud of uncertainty. Marcus Shepard stood at the window of his penthouse office, gazing down at the city that had become both his kingdom and his prison. At 35, he commanded one of the largest consulting firms in the country. Yet the reflection staring back at him revealed hollow eyes, windows to a soul that had lost its way. "Sir, your 9 a.m. is here." His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom, pulling him from his reverie. Marcus turned away from the window, straightening his tie with practiced precision. Another day, another conquest, another step further. From the idealistic young man who had once believed in changing the world. The conference room filled with executives, each face a mask of professional ambition. Marcus delivered his presentation with the same surgical precision that had made him legendary in corporate circles: numbers, projections, profit margins, the holy trinity of his existence. "Brilliant as always, Marcus." Harrison Blake, his business partner, patted him on the shoulder as the meeting concluded. "The Whitmore account is ours for the taking." Marcus nodded, but something felt different today. As the room emptied, he noticed an elderly janitor quietly working in the corner, the same man who had been cleaning these offices for 20 years. Their eyes met briefly, and in that moment, Marcus saw something he had long forgotten: contentment. That night, Marcus returned to his empty apartment. The mahogany furniture and abstract art pieces that had once impressed him now felt like props in a play he no longer wished to perform. He poured himself a scotch and stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. His phone buzzed. Another invitation to another gala, another opportunity to network, to climb higher on a ladder that seemed to stretch endlessly into a void. He let the phone fall silent. In the quiet of his apartment, Marcus heard something he hadn't noticed in years: the sound of his own breathing, the rhythm of his heartbeat. When had he stopped listening to these simple signs of life? He walked to his study, a room he rarely entered anymore. On the shelf sat a worn leather journal covered in dust, his grandfather's journal. The man who had raised him after his parents' accident, the man who had taught him about integrity, about purpose, about finding light in darkness. Marcus opened the journal carefully, as if handling something sacred. His grandfather's handwriting sprawled across the yellowed pages. "True wealth is not measured in currency, but in the lives we touch. The greatest among us are those who serve. Remember, Marcus, that every soul carries a spark of the divine, even yours." The words hit him like a physical blow. When had he stopped believing in sparks? When had he traded his grandfather's wisdom for spreadsheets and stock options? That night, Marcus dreamed of his grandfather. The old man stood in a garden filled with light, beckoning him forward. "It's not too late," his grandfather whispered. "The path is still there, waiting for you to find it again." Marcus woke with tears on his face, something that hadn't happened since the funeral 15 years ago. Outside, dawn was breaking over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. It looked like hope. He dressed in casual clothes, jeans, and a simple shirt that had been buried in his closet for years. Looking in the mirror, he almost recognized the person staring back. The office was quiet when he arrived. He walked past his corner suite and found himself in the break room, a place he had never entered. The janitor from yesterday sat at a small table, reading a newspaper and sipping coffee. "Mind if I join you?" Marcus asked. The janitor, whose name tag read Samuel, looked up with surprise that quickly melted into a warm smile. "Of course, Mr. Shepard. Coffee's fresh. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Samuel spoke. You look different today, if you don't mind me saying. I feel different, Marcus admitted. Samuel, you've been here longer than anyone. You've seen this company grow, seen people come and go. What keeps you here? Samuel set down his coffee cup thoughtfully. Purpose, Mr. Shepherd. I may clean offices, but I create spaces where people can do their best work, where they can dream, create, build. There's dignity in that. There's meaning. Marcus felt something shift inside him, like ice beginning to thaw. And what if you've lost your purpose? What if you've forgotten why you started? Samuel's eyes crinkled with understanding. Then you start again. Every sunrise is a chance to begin anew. The question is, are you brave enough to take that chance? As Marcus left the break room, he felt lighter than he had in years. He didn't return to his office. So instead, he walked out of the building and into the morning sun. The city looked different now. Not a kingdom to conquer, but a canvas waiting for new colors. His phone rang. Harrison. Marcus let it go to voicemail. There would be questions, concerns, probably anger. But for the first time in years, Marcus Shepherd was listening to a different voice, one that had been waiting patiently in the darkness, holding a small, steady light. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus walked out of his office. The corporate world was in upheaval. Marcus Shepherd, the unstoppable force of the business world, had vanished. Speculation ran wild. Some said breakdown, others whispered about scandal. Only Marcus knew the truth. He was searching. He found himself in the old neighborhood where his grandfather had raised him. The brownstones looked smaller than he remembered, but the streets still held echoes of his childhood. He stopped at a small bookshop tucked between a bakery and a flower shop, Augustine's Rare Books. The bell above the door chimed as he entered, and the smell of old paper and leather bindings enveloped him like a familiar embrace. Behind the counter sat a woman with silver hair and kind eyes that seemed to see straight through him. "You're Joseph Shepherd's grandson," she said. Not a question, but a statement. Marcus nodded, surprised. "You knew my grandfather?" "Augustine." "Knew everyone in this neighborhood," she smiled. "I'm his daughter, Elena. Your grandfather used to bring you here when you were small. You loved the adventure stories." Memory flooded back. A small boy lost in tales of heroes and quests, his grandfather's patient voice reading aloud when the words were too big. "I'm looking for something," Marcus said, though he couldn't articulate what. Elena studied him for a long moment. "I think I have just the thing." She disappeared into the back room and returned with a slim, unmarked volume. "Your grandfather left this, said to give it to you when you were ready. I think that time is now." Marcus took the book with trembling hands. It was his grandfather's handwriting. Not a journal this time, but something else. A story, a parable. "The Lightkeeper's Journey," he read aloud. "Read it when you're alone," Elena advised. "Some truths are best discovered in solitude." That evening, in his childhood room at his aunt's house, the mansion sold, the pretense abandoned, Marcus opened the book. The story was simple yet profound. A lightkeeper who maintained a lighthouse suddenly finds his light extinguished. He must journey to find the original flame, facing trials that test not his strength, but his spirit. As Marcus read, he realized his grandfather had written this for him. Every challenge the lightkeeper faced mirrored his own struggles. The keeper's mentor appeared as an old gardener who spoke in riddles. "The light you seek is not outside yourself. You are not the keeper of the light. You are the light. But first you must remember how to shine." Marcus closed the book as dawn broke. He hadn't slept, but felt more awake than he had in years. The story was clear. He needed to journey, to seek, to find his light again. That morning, a strange coincidence, or perhaps not, occurred. His aunt mentioned a retreat center in the mountains, a place where people went to find themselves. The name made Marcus smile. Beacon Hills Sanctuary. "I know the director," his aunt said. "Father Thomas, he was a CEO once like you. Then something changed him. Maybe he could help." Marcus packed light, a few clothes, his grandfather's journal and story, and something he hadn't carried in years. Hope. The drive to Beacon Hills took him through landscapes he had forgotten existed. Mountains rose like ancient guardians, forests whispered secrets in the wind, and streams sang songs of persistence and time. The corporate world felt like a dream from another lifetime. The sanctuary sat perched on a hillside, simple buildings arranged around a central garden. As Marcus parked, a man emerged from the main building, tall-bearded, with eyes that held both steel and compassion. "Mr. Shepherd," Father Thomas extended his hand, "I've been expecting you." "Expecting me?" "Elena called. Besides, men like us, former captains of industry, we recognize each other, even in transformation." They walked through the garden as Father Thomas shared his story, a tech mogul who had everything until a near-death experience showed him he had nothing. "I was drowning in success," he said. "It took losing everything to find what truly mattered. And what's that? Service, connection, purpose beyond profit, the very things we sacrifice on the altar of ambition." They stopped at a stone bench overlooking the valley. "Why did you really come here, Marcus?" Marcus considered lying, defaulting to corporate speak. Instead, he spoke truth. "I've lost my light. I read my grandfather's story, and I think I need to find it again." Father Thomas smiled. The Lightkeeper's Journey, Joseph's masterpiece. He stayed here once, years ago, wrote most of it in our library. The revelation stunned Marcus. His grandfather had walked this same path, faced the same darkness. "The journey to rediscover your light isn't easy," Father Thomas continued. "It requires facing truths you've buried, letting go of false identities and embracing a purpose greater than yourself. Are you prepared for that?" Marcus thought of his empty penthouse, his hollow victories, the reflection that had become a stranger. "I don't know if I'm prepared, but I'm willing. That's enough to start. Tomorrow, you begin. Tonight, rest. Listen to the silence. Sometimes the most profound calls come in whispers." That night, Marcus stood on the balcony of his simple room. The stars blazed with intensity impossible in the city. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. The night felt alive, expectant. He opened his grandfather's journal to a random page. The call to purpose rarely comes as thunder. More often, it's the still small voice that speaks when we finally stop shouting. "Marcus, when your time comes, listen." The voice has always been there, waiting. A meteor streaked across the sky, and Marcus felt something ancient and eternal stirring within. The call had come. Tomorrow the real journey would begin. In his dreams that night, the lighthouse stood tall against crashing waves. Its light was out, but at its base stood a figure holding a small flame. "Come," the figure said with his grandfather's voice, "it's time to remember who you are." Marcus woke before dawn, but this time darkness didn't frighten him. It was simply the prelude to light. The first week at Beacon Hills challenged everything Marcus thought he knew about himself. The routine was simple: meditation at dawn, work in the garden, communal meals, evening reflection. Yet each activity peeled back layers of corporate armor he'd worn for so long. "Pull the weeds with intention," Father Thomas instructed as they worked side by side in the vegetable garden. "Each one represents something in your life that no longer serves you." Marcus gripped a stubborn dandelion, its roots deep and tangled. As he pulled, he thought of his first major business deal, the one where he'd convinced a family company to sell, knowing it would be dismantled. The root finally gave way, leaving a hole in the earth. "Now plant something new," Father Thomas handed him tomato seedlings. "What do you want to grow in that space?" The question haunted Marcus through the morning meditation. In the silence, memories surfaced like bubbles in still water. His grandfather teaching him to fish, patient with each tangled line. His first job at a non-profit, the joy of helping others, the moment he'd chosen his MBA over a teaching fellowship. Each memory a breadcrumb on a path he'd abandoned. After lunch, an unexpected visitor arrived. Marcus was reading in the library when familiar laughter echoed through the halls. His sister Sarah stood in the doorway, her doctor's coat traded for hiking clothes. "Sarah?" Marcus rose, disbelieving. They hadn't spoken in 2 years, not since the argument about their grandfather's estate. "Father Thomas called me," she said, her eyes gentle. "He thought you might need family." They walked the mountain trails as afternoon light filtered through pine branches. Sarah had always been the idealist, choosing medicine over the family expectation of business. Their grandfather had understood her. Marcus had resented it. "I became everything he warned against," Marcus confessed as they rested by a stream. "Grandfather used to say wealth was meant to flow like water. I turned it into a dam." Sarah skipped a stone across the water. "Remember what he said about light? That it only exists when shared. I built mirrors instead, reflected glory back at myself until I couldn't see anything else. The Marcus I grew up with is still there," Sarah said. "The one who shared his Halloween candy with the younger kids, who tutored struggling students for free, who cried when grandfather read The Little Prince." That evening, the community gathered for their weekly fire circle. Stories were shared. Songs sung, truth spoken into the flame-lit darkness. When Marcus's turn came, he almost passed. Then he remembered the dandelion root. "I forgot how to love," he said simply. "Not romantic love, human love. The kind that sees people as souls, not resources. I want to remember." The fire crackled, sending sparks skyward. Elder members nodded, understanding. A young woman across the circle, Rebecca, a former attorney finding her way back from burnout, smiled encouragingly. "Love is a practice," said Maria, the sanctuary's eldest resident, "like tending a garden. It requires daily attention, patience, and the willingness to get your hands dirty." That night, Marcus dreamed again of the lighthouse. This time he stood, inside, climbing spiral stairs. At each level, he encountered himself at different ages. The eager graduate, the rising executive, the hollow success. Each version held a piece of mirror. "We were protecting ourselves," the figures said in unison. "But mirrors can become prisons." At the top, his grandfather waited. "Break them," he said gently. Marcus woke with purpose. After morning meditation, he sought Father Thomas. "I want to use my skills differently," Marcus said. "Not to build empires, but to build communities." Father Thomas's eyes lit up. "We've been praying for someone with your experience. There's a project, affordable housing for the Valley's working families. The planning is complex, the funding more so. Would you consider leading it?" Marcus felt something ignite in his chest. Not the cold fire of ambition, but something warmer. Purpose. "Yes," he said simply. The next weeks blurred into a rhythm of work and discovery. Marcus applied his strategic mind to benefit others, finding joy in complexity when it served a greater good. Rebecca joined the project, her legal expertise complementing his business acumen. They worked late into evenings, but this exhaustion felt different, satisfying like the ache after honest labor. One evening, as they reviewed blueprints by lamplight, Rebecca shared her story. The prestigious firm, the 100-hour weeks. The moment she realized she was defending companies she morally opposed. "I was brilliant at being someone I hated," she said. "We're all recovering from something," Marcus replied. "Success addiction might be the hardest to break." Their hands touched accidentally over the drawings. Both pulled back, then laughed at their caution. "I forgot how to trust too," Rebecca admitted. "Maybe we can remember together," Marcus suggested. The fire within grew stronger, not the wildfire of ambition, but the steady flame of purpose. Marcus felt his grandfather's presence in quiet moments, approving nods in the garden, whispered wisdom in the wind. One morning, Father Thomas found Marcus in the chapel, not praying but sitting in contemplation. "You're ready for the next phase," the priest said, "which is integration. Taking what you've learned back into the world. The lighthouse keeper doesn't stay at the base. He climbs the tower and tends the light for others." Marcus thought of the corporate world he'd left. Could he return? Should he? Not return. Father Thomas seemed to read his thoughts. Transform. Use your influence differently. Be the light in dark places. That night, Marcus stood again under the stars. The fire within was steady now, fed by purpose rather than ego. His grandfather's voice seemed to whisper with the wind. "The light was always yours, you just forgot how to shine." A shooting star traced its path across the sky. Marcus made no wish. He was already becoming what he'd searched for. The call came at dawn on a Tuesday. Harrison Blake's voice crackled through the phone, urgent and demanding. "Marcus, the Whitmore deal is falling apart. We need you back. The board is in chaos. Only you can salvage this." Marcus stood on the mountain overlook, watching sunrise paint the valley gold. 6 months ago, this call would have sent adrenaline surging. Now he felt only calm. "I'll come," he said finally, "but on my terms." The drive back to the city was a journey between worlds. Glass towers replaced mountain peaks, concrete covered earth, and the familiar weight of expectation settled on his shoulders like an old coat that no longer fit. The boardroom hadn't changed. Same mahogany table, same leather chairs, same faces, etched with stress and greed. But Marcus had changed. Where once he saw allies and adversaries, now he saw humans trapped in golden cages. "Thank God you're here," Harrison gripped his shoulder. "The Whitmore family is backing out. They claim we misrepresented the community impact studies." Marcus reviewed the files. His own signature stared back from documents that prioritized profit over people. The development would displace 300 families, destroy a community, garden, and replace affordable housing with luxury condos. "They're right," Marcus said quietly. "We did misrepresent. We buried the true impact in footnotes and legalese." The room erupted. Board members shouted about contracts, obligations, stock prices. Harrison's face flushed red. "Have you lost your mind? This deal is worth hundreds of millions." "Worth to whom?" Marcus asked. "Not to the families who will lose their homes, not to the children who will lose their playground. We've confused price with value." He stood, facing men and women he'd once considered giants. Now they seemed small, shrunken by their own limitations. "I have a proposal," Marcus continued. "We restructure the deal. Mixed income housing, community spaces preserved, local businesses supported. Yes, profits will be lower, but the value, real value, will be immeasurable." "This is insanity," Board member Mitchell slammed his folder shut. "You're talking about throwing away everything we've built." "No," Marcus replied. "I'm talking about building something worth keeping." The vote was close, 7 against, 5-4. Marcus's proposal failed, but something else had succeeded. 5 board members approached him afterward, curious about his transformation, hungry for something more than quarterly reports. That evening, Marcus met Harrison at their old haunt, a cigar bar overlooking the city. "What happened to you out there?" Harrison asked, genuine confusion in his voice. "You were the shark, the closer. The one who never blinked." "I remembered why I started," Marcus said simply. "Do you remember our first company, the microfinance startup?" Harrison's expression softened. "Before we got serious about business. We helped people then, real people with real dreams. Somewhere. We traded that for abstractions, market share, profit margins, shareholder value. We stopped seeing faces. The world doesn't work on good intentions, Marcus. Maybe not, but it doesn't have to work on exploitation either." They parted that night as something less than partners, but more than strangers. Marcus knew their paths had diverged permanently. The next morning brought unexpected allies. The IABA, 5 board members who'd supported his proposal, met privately. "We want to form a new venture," said Victoria Chen, the youngest board member. "Conscious capital, profitable but principled. Will you lead it?" Marcus felt his grandfather's hand in this, doors closing only for windows to open. "I'll consider it," he said, "but first I have something to finish." He returned to the Whitmore development site. The community garden was in full bloom, families tending plots that had nourished generations. Children played in the same playground where Marcus had once scraped his knees. Mrs. Rodriguez, who ran the community center, recognized him. "You're Joseph Shepard's grandson. I taught your Sunday school class." Shame washed over Marcus. These weren't statistics. They were his neighbors, his history, his roots. "I'm sorry," he said. "I forgot who I was, but I remember now." He spent the day listening. Stories poured forth. Immigrants who'd found first homes here, elderly couples who'd raised families, young professionals choosing community over commute. Each tale added weight to his resolve. That night, Rebecca called from the sanctuary. How's the corporate world treating you? Like a foreign country, Marcus admitted, but I think I'm meant to be a translator. Between worlds? Between values? There are good people here, trapped in bad systems. Maybe I can help build bridges. They talked until midnight about possibility, about redemption, about the courage to change course mid-journey. Marcus felt the fire within burn brighter. The next board meeting was different. Marcus came armed not with spreadsheets, but stories. He introduced Mrs. Rodriguez, let the community speak for itself. Faces appeared behind numbers, hearts emerged from statistics. This is highly irregular, Mitchell protested. So is our blindness, Marcus countered. We've spent so long looking up at profit projections that we've forgotten to look down at what we're building on. The presentation ended in silence. Then Victoria Chen stood. I motioned to reconsider Mr. Shepard's proposal. The vote was closer, 8 against, 4-4. Still a loss, but the tide was turning. That evening, Marcus faced his darkest moment. Harrison cornered him in the parking garage. You're destroying everything we built, his former partner seethed. Years of work, relationships, reputation, gone because you had some mountain epiphany? We built on sand, Harrison. It was always going to fall. I won't let you tear down this company with your newfound conscience. I'm not tearing down, I'm trying to rebuild on bedrock. Harrison's final words echoed in the concrete cavern. Then you're my enemy now. Marcus drove home through empty streets, streetlights casting pools of yellow in the darkness. At a red light, he noticed a homeless veteran holding a sign, seeking work, not charity. He rolled down his window, handed the man his business card. Call me tomorrow, I know people who are hiring. The veteran's eyes widened. You're that CEO, the one who disappeared. I didn't disappear, Marcus smiled. I was just finding my way home. The light turned green. As Marcus drove on, he glimpsed his reflection in the rearview mirror. The hollow eyes were gone, replaced by something his grandfather would have recognized, hope. Dawn was breaking over the city, painting glass towers in shades of rose and gold. Somewhere a lighthouse keeper was climbing stairs, ready to tend the light. The darkness was lifting, one decision at a time. The news broke on a Thursday morning. Harrison Blake, in a coordinated move with hostile board members, had initiated a coup. Legal documents flooded Marcus's inbox, breach of fiduciary duty, violation of contract, shareholder lawsuits. The corporate knife had been sharpened and aimed at his back. Marcus sat in his grandfather's study, now his makeshift office surrounded by bankers' boxes of evidence. Rebecca had taken leave from the sanctuary to help, her legal mind dissecting each allegation. They're painting you as unstable, she said, reading through depositions. The mountain retreat is being spun as a breakdown. Your compassionate proposals as fiscal irresponsibility. Let them, Marcus said calmly. Truth has a way of surfacing. Victoria Chen arrived at noon, rain streaming down the windows. 4 of us resigned in protest, she announced. The board is in chaos. Harrison's power grab is transparent, but fear keeps the others in line. Fear of what? Change, the unknown, the possibility that everything they've believed about success might be wrong. That afternoon, an unexpected ally emerged. Samuel, the janitor Marcus had shared coffee with months ago, appeared at his door. Mr. Shepard, I've been at that company 32 years. I've seen everything, heard everything. These might interest you. He handed over a flash drive. Security footage, recorded conversations. Mr. Blake's been planning this since you left. The evidence was damning. Harrison had manipulated numbers, hidden community impact reports, even fabricated mental health concerns about Marcus. But using it would mean destroying his former partner completely. What would grandfather do? Marcus asked the empty room. Sarah arrived for dinner, bringing their aunt and Father Thomas. The unlikely war council gathered around the kitchen table, sharing homemade soup and strategy. You could win ugly, Father Thomas observed, but would that victory honor your transformation? Or, Sarah suggested, you could win differently, show them another way. That night, Marcus dreamed of bridges. His grandfather stood on one side, Harrison on the other. The chasm between them yawned wide and dark. "Build it strong enough for both," his grandfather whispered. "Some will cross, others won't, but the bridge must stand." Morning brought more. Defections. 3 institutional investors called, concerned about the boardroom chaos. The Whitmore family, witnessing the internal war, threatened to walk away entirely. Marcus made his decision. He called a press conference. The conference room at the Millennium Hotel filled with reporters, board members, investors. Harrison sat in the front row, confident in his victory. Marcus took the podium. No notes, just truth. "6 months ago, I left a successful company to find a successful life," he began. "What I discovered wasn't just personal transformation, but a fundamental flaw in how we define success itself." He told his story simply: the emptiness of profit without purpose, the revelation of interconnectedness, the possibility of business as a force for good. No accusations, no revelations about Harrison's schemes, just vision. "I propose a new model," Marcus continued. "Stakeholder capitalism, where profit serves people, not the reverse. Where success is measured in lives improved, communities strengthened, futures secured." He outlined the reimagined Whitmore project: affordable housing, local business incubators, green spaces. The numbers worked, just differently. "This isn't about me versus Mr. Blake," Marcus concluded. "It's about choosing between 2 visions of what business can be. I invite everyone, board members, investors, employees, to choose the future you want to build." The room erupted in questions. Harrison's face cycled through confusion, anger, and something like fear. His carefully orchestrated coup was being transformed into a referendum on values. Over the following days, something remarkable happened. Employees at all levels began speaking up. The mailroom clerk who'd been with the company 20 years. The middle manager juggling family and deadlines. The security guard working 2 jobs to pay for his daughter's college. They shared stories on social media, in break rooms, at board meetings. The company Marcus and Harrison had built revealed itself as 2 entities: the gleaming corporate facade and the human foundation that sustained it. The Whitmore family called a meeting. The patriarch, 80-year-old James Whitmore, arrived in a wheelchair pushed by his granddaughter. "My father built our fortune in construction," he said, voice strong despite his age. "He never forgot that buildings are for people. Mr. Shepherd understands this. Mr. Blake sees only blueprints." The tide turned decisively when Maria Rodriguez organized the community. 300 families facing displacement marched peacefully to corporate headquarters. They didn't protest. They shared. Photos of children in the community garden. Stories of immigrants finding their first homes. Dreams of staying together. Harrison's support crumbled. Board members, faced with human reality rather than abstract. Numbers began switching sides. Even Mitchell, the most hardline profit hawk, admitted doubts. "Maybe we've been measuring the wrong things," he conceded in a private meeting. The final board vote was scheduled for Friday. Thursday night, Harrison appeared at Marcus's door. Rain had returned, fitting weather for endings and beginnings. "You destroyed everything," Harrison said, but the fire was gone from his voice. "No, I'm trying to build something better. There's room for you in it." Harrison laughed bitterly. "I don't know how to work any other way." "Neither did I, but we can learn." They sat in silence, 2 men on opposite sides of a philosophical chasm. Finally, Harrison spoke. "I was scared. When you left, when you changed, I thought you were betraying everything we'd built. I was remembering why we built it in the first place. Remember our first success? Mrs. Chen's flower shop?" Harrison's face softened. "She cried when we secured her loan, said we'd saved her American dream. We can do that again, at scale, profitably, but purposefully." "I don't know if I can change, Marcus." "You don't have to change, just remember. The Harrison who helped Mrs. Chen is still there." Friday arrived with unexpected sunshine. The boardroom filled one last time. The vote was called. 12 hands rose in favor of Marcus's vision. 2 abstained. Harrison sat still, internal war playing across his features. "Mr. Blake?" the board secretary prompted. Harrison looked at Marcus, then at the community members filling the gallery. His hand rose slowly. "In favor," he said quietly. The room exploded in celebration. But Marcus watched his former enemy, now perhaps a future ally. Building bridges was harder than burning them, but infinitely more rewarding. Later, as papers were signed and plans made, Father Thomas pulled Marcus aside. "The bridge holds," he said simply. "For now. It'll need constant maintenance. All bridges do, but you've shown it's possible to span different worlds." That night, Marcus stood on his apartment balcony. The city sparkled below, no longer a kingdom to conquer, but a community to serve. His phone buzzed with messages, congratulations, partnership offers, investment inquiries. But the most important message came from Rebecca. "The lighthouse keeper has found his tower. Time to tend the light." Marcus smiled. The breaking dawn had arrived, bringing not the harsh light of exposure but the gentle illumination of possibility. The bridge between profit and purpose, between success and significance, stretched before him. It would take years to complete, but the foundation was set. And on that foundation, others would build their own bridges, their own lights, their own dawns. 5 years had passed since the boardroom victory. The city's skyline looked different now, not just in its physical structures, but in its spiritual architecture. Where once glass towers competed for dominance, collaborative spaces had emerged. The Whitmore development stood as a testament to possibility. Affordable homes nestled beside community gardens, start-up incubators humming with innovation, children playing in spaces designed for joy rather than just efficiency. Marcus stood in the lighthouse, not a metaphorical one, but an actual structure built atop the new community center. It served no navigational purpose, but reminded everyone of the light that guides from within. "Grandfather would have loved this," Sarah said, joining him on the observation deck. She'd relocated her practice to serve the community, trading prestige for purpose. Below, the annual Harvest of Hope Festival filled the streets, food trucks run by local entrepreneurs, art installations by resident creators, music stages showcasing neighborhood talent. Harrison Blake worked the barbecue station, his sleeves rolled up, serving former board members and new immigrants with equal enthusiasm. "Who would have thought?" Marcus mused, watching his transformed partner. "The shark learned to swim with dolphins." Rebecca appeared with their daughter, 3-year-old Hope, named for the virtue that had sustained their journey. The child ran to her father, arms outstretched, carrying the unconscious wisdom of the truly innocent. "Daddy, why is the light always on?" Hope pointed to the lighthouse beacon. "To remind us," Marcus lifted her to see better, "that even in darkness we can shine." Father Thomas officiated the festival blessing, his words carrying across the gathered crowd. "We celebrate not just harvest, but transformation. Not just success, but significance. Not just profit, but purpose." The crowd represented Marcus's greatest achievement, former corporate titans working alongside struggling families, Yale graduates learning from immigrant entrepreneurs, wealthy investors breaking bread with minimum wage workers. The bridge between worlds had become a living community. Victoria Chen approached with news. "The model is spreading. Chicago wants to replicate. Los Angeles is adapting our framework. Even international cities are calling." "Let them learn," Marcus replied. "But remind them, it's not about copying a structure, it's about changing hearts." As sunset approached, the community gathered for the lighting ceremony. Each family had crafted a lantern, decorated with dreams and aspirations. One by one, they released them into the darkening sky. Mrs. Rodriguez, now in her 80s, pressed a worn envelope into Marcus's hands. "Your grandfather gave me this before he passed, said to wait until you'd found your way home." Marcus opened it carefully, his grandfather's handwriting shaky, with age but clear with purpose. "My beloved Marcus, if you're reading this, you've completed the journey I could only point toward." The lighthouse keeper's tale was never about maintaining someone else's light. It was about discovering that you are the light. Remember, success without significance is failure decorated with gold. Wealth without wisdom is poverty wearing a disguise. Power without purpose is weakness masquerading as strength. You've learned what I always knew. that love is the only currency that multiplies when shared. The light you've kindled will outlive us both, passing from heart to heart like an eternal flame. Your journey from darkness to light, from selfishness to service, from success to significance, is the greatest return on investment any grandfather could wish for. Build bridges, tend lights, plant gardens, but most importantly, help others find their own light. For in the end, we are all lighthouse keepers, guardian of each other's flame. Until we meet again in that place where all lights converge, your loving grandfather. Tears flowed freely as Marcus read. Around him, the community continued releasing. Lanterns, each one a prayer, a hope, a promise ascending into the star-filled sky. He always knew, Marcus whispered to Rebecca, even when I was lost, he knew I'd find my way. The festival continued into the night, but Marcus climbed alone to the lighthouse's highest point. There, he found a surprise. His old board of directors, the original opponents, had gathered. "We came to apologize," Mitchell spoke for the group, "and to learn. What you've built here, it's changed us." "There's nothing to forgive," Marcus replied. "We were all trapped in the same system. The miracle is that we can all escape." They talked until dawn, former adversaries becoming allies, planning how to transform their own companies, their own communities. The cancer of greed could be cured by the medicine of meaning. As the sun rose, painting the sky in ribbons of gold and rose, Marcus felt a presence beside him. Not visible, but unmistakable, his grandfather's spirit, proud and peaceful. "The light is strong now," the presence seemed to say. "Strong enough to share, strong enough to spread, strong enough to endure." A year later, the movement had a name, the Lighthouse Project. Communities across the globe were building their own beacons, physical structures that served as reminder and metaphor. Business schools taught courses on profitable purpose. The old paradigm of shareholder supremacy crumbled before the evidence of stakeholder success. Marcus received invitations to speak, to consult, to lead. He accepted some, declined others, always returning to his community, his family, his original lighthouse. Fame was no longer a goal but a tool, useful only when it amplified the message. One autumn evening, as leaves painted the community in shades of amber and rust, an unexpected visitor arrived. A young man, impeccably dressed, radiating the hungry ambition Marcus recognized from his own past. "Mr. Shepherd," the visitor began, "I'm David Chen, Victoria's nephew. I've just been made partner at Morrison & Associates. I've studied your model, but frankly, I don't see how it scales without compromising returns." Marcus smiled, seeing himself 20 years ago. "Walk with me, David." They toured the community as twilight fell. Marcus didn't lecture or preach. He simply introduced David to residents, the former gang member who now ran a youth center, the refugee family whose restaurant had become a neighborhood anchor, the retired teacher whose urban farm fed 50 families. "These are your returns?" David asked, skepticism wavering. "These are our returns," Marcus corrected. "Plus 18% annually for 5 years, if you need numbers." "How?" "When you invest in human potential instead of human exploitation, the returns compound differently. Loyalty, innovation, community support, these aren't line items on spreadsheets, but they create value that outlasts market cycles." They reached the lighthouse as full darkness fell. The beacon swept its arc across the community, illuminating faces, homes, hopes. "I want to understand," David admitted, "but everything I've learned says this shouldn't work." "Then unlearn," Marcus suggested gently. "Stay a week, work in the garden, serve in the soup kitchen, attend the community meetings, then decide if your education is complete." David stayed not a week but a month. Marcus watched him transform as he himself had, slowly, reluctantly, then suddenly and completely. Another bridge built, another light kindled. The seasons cycled. Hope grew from toddler to child, absorbing lessons not from lectures but from living. She helped in the garden, learning patience from seeds. She served at community dinners, learning joy from generosity. She climbed the lighthouse daily, learning responsibility from routine. "Will I be a lighthouse keeper like you, Daddy?" she asked one evening. "You already are," Marcus replied. "Every kind word, every shared toy, every helping hand, you're tending your light. On the 5th anniversary of the transformation, the community held a gratitude ceremony. Thousands gathered, residents, business leaders, skeptics turned believers. Harrison Blake gave the keynote, his words stunning in their honesty. I spent 40 years climbing ladders leaned against the wrong walls. Marcus showed me how to build foundations instead. We were partners in profit, now we're partners in purpose. The greatest merger isn't between companies, it's between success and significance. As the ceremony concluded, a surprise announcement. The Lighthouse Project had been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in Economics. Not for inventing new theories, but for proving that ancient wisdom, love, service, community could transform modern systems. Marcus felt uncomfortable with the recognition. Awards and accolades reminded him of his old life, when external validation drove internal worth. But Rebecca reminded him, this isn't about you. It's about showing the world what's possible. The Nobel Committee's citation read, for demonstrating that ethical capitalism isn't an oxymoron but an evolution. For building bridges between profit and purpose. For proving that the best business decision is often the most human one. Standing in Stockholm, accepting the prize, Marcus spoke not of economic models, but of his grandfather. Joseph Shepard was a simple man who understood complex truths. He taught me that we are all lighthouse keepers, responsible for each other's safe passage. This prize belongs to him, and to everyone who chooses light over darkness, bridge over wall, garden over wasteland. The return journey felt like completion of a circle, from darkness to light, from isolation to community, from success to significance. But Marcus knew circles were actually spirals, each revolution reaching higher while honoring the path below. Back home, the lighthouse beam swept its eternal arc. Children played in gardens their parents had planted. Entrepreneurs collaborated in spaces designed for mutual success. Former enemies shared meals and memories. What now? Rebecca asked, as they watched their daughter distribute sandwiches at the community lunch. Now we tend the light, Marcus replied, day by day, soul by soul, until the darkness has no dominion. That night, Marcus climbed to the lighthouse summit alone. The city spread below, its lights no longer competing but complementing, like stars in a vast constellation of human potential. He opened his grandfather's journal to write his own entry. The lighthouse keeper's journey never truly ends. We simply pass the torch to willing hands, knowing that light shared is light multiplied. The darkness I once feared has become the canvas on which light paints its masterpiece. To those who follow, remember that success without significance is failure in disguise. That wealth means nothing without wisdom to guide its use. That power exists not to dominate, but to serve. Build your bridges strong enough to bear the weight of transformation. Tend your light faithfully, especially when storms threaten to extinguish it. Plant gardens in concrete jungles, knowing that life finds a way. Most importantly, remember, you are the light, not the keeper, not the tender, but the very flame itself. Shine accordingly. As he finished writing, a shooting star traced its path across the heavens. Marcus no longer made wishes on such celestial moments. He had learned that true magic lay not in wishing, but in working, not in receiving, but in giving, not in climbing, but in lifting others. The lighthouse beam continued its sweep, steady, strong, eternal. Somewhere another soul trapped in darkness would see its glow and remember, there is always a way home. In boardrooms and classrooms, in community centers and family kitchens, the story spread. Not as myth or legend, but as living proof that transformation was possible, that bridges could span any chasm, that light, once kindled, could never be fully extinguished. Marcus descended the lighthouse stairs, each step a prayer of gratitude. Rebecca waited below with hope, their own small light in the vast darkness. Together, they walked home through streets that had once symbolized conquest, but now represented community. Behind them, the lighthouse stood sentinel, not warning of dangers but welcoming wanderers home. Its light swept on, patient and persistent, a reminder that even the darkest night cannot overcome a single flame shared freely. The city slept, but the light remained awake. In offices where lonely executives questioned their purpose, in apartments where young dreamers planned better tomorrows, in shelters where the lost sought direction. The light found them all, whispering the eternal truth. You are not alone. You are loved. You are light. And so the lighthouse keeper's tale continued, not ended but endless, not finished but forever beginning, each dawn a new chapter in the eternal story of redemption, purpose, and the light that binds us all.